All right. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us this afternoon, this evening, depending on where you're joining us from, for our Women in Semiconductor Engineering panel event hosted by ASM. My name is Jordan Smith. I'm a program manager here within our talent acquisition department here at ASM. I'll be moderating our conversation here today. And before we kick things off, I'd like to just quickly add that this is the first time that we as a company are hosting an external or a live panel event like this. But following a successful Women's Initiative Network, or what we refer to internally as WIN, we had a US chapter event here earlier in Phoenix, and we felt that an event like this really would be a perfect way to continue our celebration of both International Women's Day and Women's History Month by providing a great opportunity for all of you to receive some additional information on not only what it's like working in the semiconductor industry, but more specifically, what's it like working in this industry as a woman. So joining me today are 5 engineers from here at ASM. You may have already seen a snapshot of them on our Handshakes event page when you're getting registered, but regardless if you did or not, I'm really excited for them to each be more formally introduced to you all. So with that, our first panelist, Daisy Huang. Daisy, please take a moment here and introduce yourself to the audience.
Hello, everyone. This is Daisy, and I'm a senior mechanical engineer working in ASM. As you see the poster that Jordan showing here, that I started working with the ASM almost 4 years ago, and right after I graduated from my PhD degree at NC State. And before that, I was studying, and I grew up in Beijing, China, and had my undergraduate education in Beijing, China as well. And then I started my master degree in University of Southern California, and then I had my PhD at North Carolina State University. So ASM is the first company I'm being with in this industry and for my career as well. So since I joined for the last 3 years and 10 months, I've been working on Intrepid ESA, and this is the very first semiconductor tool equipment I'm being working with, and up until now, I'm still working on this Intrepid ESA. And because of the work I was doing for this equipment, I've been successfully had 3 US patents published for the thin film deposition system, and then some highlight from Jordan asked us to do a significant career accomplishment since my career is kind of short here. So I put myself as a first generation in the industry environment, since both my grandparents' side and my parents' generation are most of them are in education and academia. So besides work, I like to do traveling and watching sports, and then do Zumba and hiking during the weekend. That's about me.
Thank you, Daisy. Our next panelist, Devika Chowdhury. Devika?
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. So I'm Devika, and I'm working as a senior process engineer. I've been at ASM for just about 3 years now. I've completed my entire education till my PhD in India, and I came to the US for my postdoctoral research work, after which, so I was there in the Argonne National Lab, after which I joined ASM. So basically, at ASM, also in terms of process, so we have thin film deposition, which is ALD, and epitaxy. So I have been working on the ALD right from my PhD days. So it's been more than 10 years now, though I've not been in the industry for more than 3 years, but working on this technique has been almost like a decade for me. So I do have a lot of journal publications in this topic, as well as US patents. I'm also involved in the American Vacuum Society. Some of you might have know about that. So I'm part of the executive committee for that as well. That is in addition to my work here at ASM. And in terms of personal hobbies, so I like traveling. I also like painting, reading, and some home decoration stuff. So that I enjoy doing those, and those kind of get my mind off work for some few hours during the week. So that's all from me.
Thank you, Devika. And our next panelist, Kimberly Shappy.
Hi, my name's Kimberly. I joined the industry in 1997, so I think I'm the old one on the panel. I got my undergrad in chemistry and physics and went on for my master's in inorganic chemistry. I took the random walk through the research to do some research in semiconductor, actually, in patterning. From there, I've worked for 3 different major companies with ASM for the last almost 6 years now. I started in process development with the chemistry background. I quickly moved to do customer support, so what we called key account technologist. So I would take the new technology out to the customer and make sure it did well, and then I would voice the customer voice back to the company. So that I found kind of my sweet spot and really loved the communication back and forth. So I did a lot of my career was on the customer side. And then just recently I've moved into what we call business development. So you'd think that doesn't sound technical, but I help find new opportunities at our customers and help to try to communicate to the company what we need to do for the product to be successful and win business. So it culminates all of the work that I've done to this point and really drive our products where we need to be successful. As far as accomplishments, it's kind of daunting to say, okay, what did I do for 25 years? One of the things I'm most proud of has nothing to do with engineering, but because of my experience, I was asked to host our very first engineering and process innovation conference last year at ASM. And that was a huge accomplishment. It went off, everybody loved it, but it also just gave me a whole vision of the company. So I really enjoyed that. But on top of it, as I mentioned, I did a lot of customer support. So whenever I was able to win new business and get penetrations, those were some major wins for me that I'm very proud of, along with the patents and such. But the winning the business is just, it's usually multiple years of effort that come into play. I used to have hobbies in singing and dancing, and then I had kids. So now my major hobby is just whatever they want to do and having fun with them.
I love it. Thank you, Kimberly. Our next one up here, Shraddha Prem.
Yeah. Hi,
There you
everyone.
go.
I'm Shraddha, and I've been with ASM for around 9 months. So I'm the newbie here. So not much experiences to talk about, but still, I believe I can bring some insights as a newbie. I did my undergrad back in India from APJ Abdul Kalam Technological University, and I did in mechanical engineering. And I graduated from Cornell with a master's in mechanical engineering as well in 2022. So I'm fairly new. So no much career accomplishment so far, but my major job role here include continuous improvement projects to implement productivity improvement solutions to resolve critical issues and develop DOEs. And I also mostly work on analyzing the top spend spare items for the product lines, like almost every product lines like EPI, ALD, and plasma products as well, and to support the cost reduction targets for the company. My personal hobbies is singing, dancing, and a little bit of drawing and cooking. So that's about me.
Okay. Thank you, Shraddha. And our 5th panelist, Sue Wong.
Hi, I'm Sue, and I've actually only been at ASM for a couple of years now, so new to the semiconductor industry, but I did my undergrad at MIT in mechanical engineering, and then a few years later, I got my MBA at ASU. And so most of my career has actually been spent in telecommunications and in embedded computing. So relatively new to semiconductor, but I'm in the design of our platforms. So some of my personal hobbies are pickleball, pizza making, and I love some Korean dramas.
I'm going to need some recommendations too. That's one genre I haven't gotten into yet. Thank you. Thank you. Okay. So very quick overview here before we jump into the actual questions for our panel today. So as I alluded to earlier, discussion today, that's going to be geared towards what a career, life, overall, what you can expect to run into working in this field as a woman. So our panelists are going to be sharing their experiences, the things that they've personally encountered over the course of their careers in this industry, and also providing advice, the things that you should be considering both before and also while in the semiconductor industry. So you may notice that your microphones are muted, cameras are also disabled. We will be taking questions via our chat system. If you look at the top window of the meeting here, there's a QA, there's also a chat. The QA feature, unfortunately, we're running into some technical issues right now, so please submit those questions through the chat feature. You can do that either during the conversation that we have here or during the Q&A session that we'll have at the end here. We'll reserve a little bit of time to address any of those. So with that being said, let me quit presenting here and let's dive in. Get my questions here. Okay, first question. We're going to open with an easy one. We want to hear from you all. Describe the semiconductor industry in one word. I'll open the floor to anyone that wants to tackle this one first.
I would say global and let me put two words: global and teamwork.
Global and teamwork. Okay.
I would say fast.
Ever changing.
Say fast too.
Fast.
I would say it's fascinating because like it continues to improve our lives and it will never change because it's a part of our daily life.
Absolutely. Yes. Very important industry, very fast-paced industry, ever evolving. I think that's the main takeaway there. Okay. Let's get into our next question here. So more on topic here of what conversation is here for today. Now, 2 out of 3 US women, they say that they're not encouraged to pursue a career in STEM. Just 31% of women with a STEM bachelor's degree actually go on to pursue a career in that field. If you look at semiconductor engineering, that workforce of engineers, 10.7% of semiconductor engineers are comprised of women, with the rest being men. So with those statistics in mind, getting to the question here, what was it that drew you to this industry? Devika, let's start with you. What was it that pulled this industry out for you?
So I started working. I would say that what drew me to the industry was mostly looking at someone in my family, which was my grandfather. So he was an engineer. He used to work on a lot of solar power plants and hydroelectric projects. And I used to go with him as a kid and to many of his plant sites. So that is what kind of drew me in to this kind of industry and this kind of engineering work. In terms of semiconductor industry in particular, because I started working on solar cells as during my master's. So that is also part of the semiconductor industry, though it's not silicon based. But that kind of instilled in me that okay, cells, transistors, and all these electronic items. And then I kind of started to put everything together. Okay, this is what actually goes into our phones and laptops, and that's when the entire the world of and how fascinating, as Shreya mentioned, the word was that everything and all our daily activities are kind of so intertwined with this industry, and that's kind of drew me into the industry where I wanted to work more into this and apply my research into all the gadgets and all the ever improving gadgets which we are using nowadays everywhere, be it just electronics and biomedical, like medical industry, and name it, automobile, anything and everything.
Yeah, it really is crazy how even just 10 years ago, the technology that this industry touches, it's expanded so much in that time. Anyone else? Is there anything else that anyone would like to add to that on what pulled out the semiconductor industry in particular for you?
For me, it's actually quite an exciting industry. We are in Phoenix, and we have a lot of activity in the semiconductor industry going on here. A lot of new plants that are getting built by our customers, and so there's just a lot of activity. There's a lot of growth, and ASM in particular was just ramping up with new technologies and new designs, and they're really ramping up their number of engineers and the research and the amount that they were pouring into research and development. So for me, I think it was just all of the growth that was going on that attracted me to it.
Absolutely. And a lot of projected growth still to come too, not slowing down anytime soon. Awesome. Anyone else would like to add to that? Okay. Let's move on here. Our next question. Graduating from college was an important and also a scary time. So getting started in the semiconductor industry, any industry really, it can feel daunting. So for young women who are getting ready to maybe apply for their first job, or to those who may still have a couple of semesters left and they're still looking at how to best prepare themselves, any advice or pointers to individuals in that situation? Shraddha, I think you might be closest to this if we can start with you on this one.
Yeah, definitely. So as a new college graduate, it resonates with me. So it's definitely very strenuous to do your coursework, your projects and job search, everything together towards your graduation. And it's quite important to manage your schedule accordingly and always make sure to make some time for yourself, because it is required for a balance in our life, right? So that's what's most important. And for anyone who's applying for a first job, from a personal point of view, I believe that it is highly unlikely that you would develop a specific interest towards a specific field towards your first year of your college or something like that. And you're mostly likely to develop that interest as you delve deeper into the subject. However, I think it's better to start earlier than later, because you should identify your area of interest towards your third year of your college at least, because then only you will have enough time left to take up some courses to gain that knowledge on that area, as well as do some projects and internships that are specific to that area, so that you get that experience. And if you have all that aligned to your area of interest, then it will definitely give you an upper hand when you apply for jobs specifically. And I believe this is from a personal experience.
Yeah, that's great pointers there, Shraddha. And I think, even just thinking back here, I think you might have attended some of those initial kind of introductory sessions that we led to try and give some more details. So yeah, getting involved, trying to just put yourself out there, that's great advice. Anyone else would like to add on to that at all?
I would like to add on to what she just said, but from a point of view from a PhD student level. So the reason why I want to emphasize is that I've been helping my junior lab mates to actually get a job and looking for the industry job after at the same time they are preparing their defense and communicate with the committee and advisors. That's a most nervous period of time for the PhDs to actually get their defense done and graduate as a doctor degree. So that period of time, and you have to be very mentally prepared, and also be sure that you are communicating every step that you are thinking and the decision you are making to your advisor. So make yourself connected with your lab more than you think. That will help you to determine the next step, and also help you to be supportive during your job hunting as a PhD student.
Yeah, great advice there, Daisy. Great advice. Okay, let's move on to our next question here. Now, women, they comprise just 27% of STEM workers and only 8% of computer network architects. So while this number, it's higher across other STEM professions outside of computer networking, that low number, it sheds light on there's a lot of progress that still needs to be made in some of the more faster growing areas of the STEM professions. So with that in mind, how do you feel that ASM is doing in terms of our progress in more gender equality across our open positions within our engineering fields? Sue, let's start with you on this question, if you don't mind.
Sure. So I think ASM right now is in America, I think they're about 15%. Women make up 15% of our workforce. And they recently started an initiative where they want to try to get that number up to 20% by, I believe, 2025. And it's not only within the US, but they're trying to increase this percentage to 20% worldwide, so globally. So this is relatively new initiative, but this is something that they're working towards. So that in and of itself is going to make progress. Another thing that they have that they started that I recently really enjoy is the Women's Initiative Network. And so they plan events quarterly where we can connect with other women, because maybe some of us are in departments where there's just one of us, or maybe there's two of us. And so these events that they plan are really helpful, because you just get to meet other women and you get to hear what they're doing in their departments and what they're doing in their lives. And it's just a good way to connect. So just a couple of ways that ASM is trying to support women.
Yeah, great response. And I'm glad that you brought up the win piece, because I very quickly referenced it. But that's, I mean, relatively within the past year and a half, I'd say, no more than 2 years. It's relatively new. And I'd say the engagement and the growth of it has been pretty cool to see. So yeah, definitely a lot of work to be done, but some good strides that are being made. Great response there, Sue. And any additional comments on that question there from our other panelists? If not, that's okay. I think Sue Capsule. Oh, sorry, Kimberly, did you have something?
I was going to say, she did a great job. So all I have to say is that through the Women's Initiative, there's just so much more opportunity in what they're bringing to bear. But you can see the focus within ASM to grow our numbers as how many women, the women at the higher levels. Also, I can see just in the short 6 years has changed since I've joined. So we're definitely making great strides.
Yeah, I'm glad you called out the leadership piece too, Kimberly. Okay, next question here. Mentorship. Has there been a mentor or role model, whatever you want to call it, that's made a positive impact on your career? Devika, let's start with you on this one, if you don't mind.
Sure. So yes, I would say definitely having a mentor or a role model always helps. For me personally, when I was doing my postdoc, I was lucky enough to have got one such mentor. And also it doesn't have to be from your same like division or your department or doing the same work. It doesn't have to be your direct supervisor or manager, because I feel that it's best if it's not directly related to your work, because then you can actually go outside of your work and discuss things and always get a fresher perspective of how things are working and what else can you do in order to improve yourself and your work and have like a fresh set of opinions, because you are discussing something with your supervisor all the time and you know your work for the best. But a mentor is someone who can actually guide you in other ways, like there's any soft skill which you need. Do you need any communication skills? How can you better organize your work? How can you do? And all their expertise and all these experiences comes a lot into help, because at the end of the day, in fact, if somebody is from a different field, then that you actually gain insight into those kind of fields. And at the end of the day, all professional work and all professional field, they're about the same. You need the basic set of skills in order to go about anywhere, be it semiconductor or anything else. So I think having a mentor, and that's something which you need to ask. So that I would like to give that one advice, like nobody's going to come to you and say, hey, let me mentor you or let me guide you. So we at times are very shy to just go and ask senior or experts or whoever because we feel intimidated. But that's something I have learned is you just need to ask. There are lots of people who are ready to tell yes to you, and that they will help you, but we just need to ask for that. So that has been a big experience and learning for me, and because of that I was able to get good mentors in my life, and still I'm trying and getting more and more, because for me to learn from people.
Yeah. Yeah, and I'm glad you called out that outside perspective piece, because sometimes that can be, I mean, a blessing in itself, just having some input from someone outside your team, outside your direct group that you're working with. So great answer there, Devika. I guess one follow-up I have with that, the ask piece, just asking, you know, as far as identifying individuals that would be good to approach, good to ask for those types of situations. Process for that. I mean, Kimberly, you had listed on your bio NCG, new college graduate, mentor, coach. Do you have anything to add to what Devika had mentioned about maybe how to identify some of those individuals to approach for something like that?
A lot of that is going to be self-reflection, right? So part of it is you need to get that first key mentor within the company that also has visibility and has been in the company to help guide you to who you should also talk to. But hopefully you have that visibility, because you should be planning out your career path, right? Your 3-year goal, 5-year goal. And with your self-reflection, decide what skills do I need to grow. So that's where I would try to find those mentors. Okay, well, I really admire Sue's presentation skills, and her presentations are right on point. Or I really admire this person's business knowledge, or whatever that skill is that you want to learn. I've leveraged that to who I get for my mentors. Mainly, also the mentors come in also when you have difficult situations at work. I had this happen, I don't know how to handle it. What's the best way politically I should approach it? So that's why having that mentor outside of your organization is really critical. Ideally not so far outside, so you can hear what the feedback is at a couple levels above. Hopefully, if you're getting the visibility, that person that's above and over should know your work. So they should be able to give you, and also try to find mentors outside of your industry. Again, those people might have completely different skill sets. So there's so much social media you should be in from your research groups that you can keep track of. So, finding those people are really critical in growing all of you to keep moving forward and ahead. And again, thank you. I didn't point that out. The people that I can point to and say I've mentored is probably my biggest point of pride over the last 25 years.
Yeah, it's always great to see your efforts and your advice lead to someone else experiencing some success. So definitely something that's fun to watch happen.
One more thing I want to add to
Yeah.
this question is that Devika and Kimberly talked about like a specific person for you to be like a formal mentorship. But I also point out all your friends from early years and also your research level in master or PhD degrees can also be your great resources to actually seeking the advice from them within a same industry or not, that they are the great resources for you to put your questions to them and asking the advice. They may not be in the same industry, same environment of companies, but they can give you their advice on handling stuff, and you can commonalize a lot of stuff. And also for the girls in this group in this meeting, that speaking of my personal experience, that I've been talking with my girlfriends all like more than my like a lot more major the guy friends circle, more depend regarding my working experience, all that, more than the other group, because you think the same and you can like commonalize a lot of big things and communicate more, so you can actually gain the suggestions from each other more.
Yeah, great addition there, Daisy. Thank you. Next question here. Looking back on your careers, some of them longer than others. What is one thing about this industry, the semiconductor industry, that you wish that you knew earlier on? It could be a positive thing that you've come to find. It could be something that you just wish you knew about this industry. I'll leave that open to anyone that would like to speak to this one.
So I'll take it a little broad. Again, starting 25 years ago, I didn't quite have as easy access to as much information as you do these days. It took me a while to really appreciate how much it helps you to know your customer's customer, to understand what's driving your company, right? And by having that knowledge of your customer's customer helps you know where your company's going, why it's going. And so when you first start in your job, you're so focused on learning that job, but you need to make sure you're taking some time to see the bigger picture of where you need to be and what your company's doing and learning outside of your area. So you're learning that bigger picture too. So that's my 2 cents. And like I said, try to make it broad.
No, that's a great point, and just something that I'll add on to that. That's something that we look for in our new college graduates when we're interviewing and making hiring decisions. We want to see that they have an understanding of that broader perspective of our industry. You know, you don't need to be experts in what you're doing here, but we want to see that you've got that approach, that you want to see how what you're doing is affecting the broader picture. So just my 2 cents that I'll add there. But would anyone else like to add on to what Kimberly had said here? If not, we can keep it moving.
I think Kimberly did a very good job in just giving an overview of.
And she's the most senior here, so she can
Yeah.
represent us.
We are still learning.
Wonderful. Okay, let's move it on here. What advice would you have for our audience on how to position themselves for opportunities and for growth in engineering fields following graduation? So once they've gotten into their role, how can they ensure that they're doing what they can to bring that growth, bring those new opportunities? Daisy, would you like to start with this one?
Sure. I have like 2 points that actually for this question to be the answer is short. The first one is be determined to step into a unknown in territory. You will not know what you are doing from school. That's the first advice. And the second, it's probably the same, is just don't be shy to being new in the field, because you will have mentors, and then the managers and then your senior engineers will expect it like you are new. It's not going to expect you to have a tons of experience. Otherwise, you will not be in NCG position anymore.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Would anyone else like to add on to that?
Yeah, and I would also want to add, like, not only for NCGs, but also for masters or PhD students. Always be curious about why things are happening, and don't shy away not to ask, questions. You don't need to know everything. Like, nobody knows everything, and it's okay, because sometimes we feel, oh, when we come to a job or for any opportunity, we tell someone, oh, I'm sorry, I don't know this. There's nothing to be sorry about. It's okay. So sometimes I have felt it like, oh, should I say I don't know this, or should I not? I should just keep quiet and just not ask anything. But then I realized that it was harming to me than benefiting me. So I've learned that during my work, that yes, please ask questions. There's no wrong questions to ask. And also, that is how opportunities will come to you. That is how we are going to learn more and more new things. And it's a constant learning curve. Like, we have to always keep on learning and be open to getting new information, reading papers, journals, news, what is happening in the industry, because no one knows everything. So that's kind of my advice, that don't be scared.
Yeah, that's great advice for any situation, really. Just ask questions. Don't be afraid to speak up. Let's see here. Next question here. interviewees, what can they do if there's no women that are a part of the interview process? Do you have any advice? I mean, if you're dealing with a panel of 3 or 4 individuals and it's all men, any advice in situations like that? Sreda, I'll look to you again, since again, I think you're probably the closest to us all for this process, if you don't mind putting the spotlight on you here.
Oh, yeah, definitely. So, as a person who never had a female interviewer in any of my interviews, I can definitely speak on this because, like, I'm a mechanical engineering major and I'm used to that and I'm okay with that too. So, and I believe that no advantage is there for a person based on gender for any interviews. And what matters the most is your skills and how well you express yourself as an individual in an interview. What your managers or someone will look for is how you are intending to contribute to the company as a person and what you intend to bring to the table. And that's what's most important. Be confident in yourself and make sure that you express yourself in the best way rather than, being scared based on your gender, because it doesn't matter. I've never felt the difference.
And that is I think a good segue into our next question about talking about imposter syndrome, finding that confidence in your skill sets that it doesn't matter who you're talking to. You know what you know, and you're expressing those skill sets, those opinions, those feelings in meetings and calls and interviews. Did any of you feel like there was a process of finding that confidence, or how did you feel that you went through that evolution of speaking out and making sure that those opinions were being heard? And I'll leave that one open for anyone that wants to take that one initially.
So maybe I can start.
Sure.
So yeah, I mean, as women, I think we all overthink a lot, and that is kind of an integral part of our personalities. I kind of sometimes I feel jealous of men, like how can they don't maybe think at all. I don't know. And sorry, Jordan, there, but I guess yeah, so I guess the imposter syndrome comes to us more naturally, but that's where we have to actually consciously at the beginning, try to lift ourselves up, ourselves as have a support system around us, like Daisy mentioned, like have your mentor, have your friends, who can lift you up and kind of give those accolades and acknowledgements to you that yes, you are good, because how much ever we feel, sometimes we do need that external factor to tell that to us. So that is one thing. So have a good support system around you. The second thing is, yes, don't, again, I keep on saying because it's something which I've experienced personally, like not to be shy, not to be scared of if one person tries putting you down, I can guarantee you there are five people around you who will lift you up. We just need to find them and kind of just not hear to that one bad word, but hear the 5 good words, because in us we just try to take that bad word and just try to think about that more and not listen to what the good things which you are doing and which people are saying. So I guess that's kind of what we have to, it's a conscious effort which one needs to make.
And it's surrounding yourself too with like you said, that support system. Recognize that could be a wide variety. Like what Daisy was mentioning, it could just be friends that you've met through a variety of different ways. But yeah, thank you for speaking to that, Devika. Anyone else? Is there anything else that we'd like to add on to that for going about developing that voice?
So I think I want to add one like a short example as like Devika talks about a long term or a more like a smooth environment where you have a backup choice, right? And then right now I'm going to give an example on the conference that Kimberly hosted back in last year for me, and then I was lucky enough to join a conference with only 2 weeks notice, and then my presentation was not ready until the day that I'm going to present. I'm freaked out already before the conference, and I'm not afraid. By the time I'm there, I'm not afraid to say I'm nervous, because the topic is not suggested by myself, or the material I want to present is in there, but it's not all the material is from me. So I'm freaked out. I told my manager, I told my directors that, oh, I'm nervous. And then what they tell me, both of them are males, right? They tell me, nobody knows more than your product in that room. When you on the podium, which I've never done that for my entire life, other than my PhD defense, because for the last 3 years, we all in the COVID situation, and then there's no real conference when you present to a greater audience in the same conference at all. And this time I'm facing like maybe 60 people, I'll say, like in that room or something like that. And then I'm freaked out. So then I think that's a great advice from my manager and director. Hey, you are the one that knows your stuff the best in the conference room. That's the things that you always need to think when you communicate your materials out or your projects out to the greater audience. And when you take in charge of the project, that's the most important thing to overcome that fear.
Yeah. Yeah, great point there. I mean, you're the ones that are spending the time studying this, getting the education, working on the projects, spending the days on all the technical pieces. You're the experts. Have the confidence in that and trust in that. Let me pull up our next question here. So this is a good one. So work-life balance, obviously a priority for everyone. We've mentioned that this industry, the semiconductor industry, it's fast-paced. How do you combine a challenging job in a fast-paced industry with a personal life and finding that balance? Sue, do you want to speak to this one?
Sure. I think work-life balance is going to mean different things in different seasons of a woman's life. And so, when you first get out of college, having work-life balance is going to be different than if you're married and you have young children at home. And so, and I think I was fortunate enough in my career that when, after I had my first son, I actually went part-time with my engineering job. And I was able to be part-time at home. And then when my second one was born, I actually took 5 years off and I stayed at home with them when they were babies. But then as they went into school, I was able to come back into engineering. And so I just chose to do that just based on those seasons, and it was okay. It worked out, and I don't regret taking that time off. Also, having family nearby really helps. So if you're fortunate enough to have parents down the street that can help with the kids after school, that definitely helps. And then now at this stage in my career, in semiconductor, there's going to be big pushes where you're going to be asked to work weekends and evenings. And then there'll be some times where you just get a breather. And so just understanding these cycles, you cannot be working on all 10 cylinders all the time. Like, you have to be able to push at times, but then know to give yourself a break when those more relaxing times come up. And so that's just my advice.
Yeah, no, that's great advice. Anyone else want to add on to that? I think it captured it pretty well.
Yeah, I say I had the same situation. I took time off when I had my children. I was able to, because of the reputation I had, finagle a part-time job coming back in, and that was, and stay semiconductor the full time. But I have clawed and fought. You have to put it first. You have to put it as a priority. And sometimes I don't sleep as much. But right now for me to be with my kids, I actually work with Japan. So I'll work later into the evening so that I can have that right after school time with them. And so that's how it's worked for me. So you do have to work for it, and you have to figure out how to make it work. And that's something that I suggest, you think about early on in your career of how you see your balance in your life. what positions will work best for what you will be happy. Some people are happy to be road warriors and work 12, 14 hours a day, and other people want a different, to not have to travel. And so understanding what those positions down the road would require is really important, or else you're going to end up in a position that you can't find that balance.
Yeah, that's a great point, Kimberly. I'm keeping an eye on the clock here. I think we've got time for maybe one more question before we open it up to Q&A here. So let's end with this question here. What advice would you give to those starting their engineering careers for how they can respond to colleagues who may be questioning their knowledge on a certain subject? Shraddha, again, I think you might be closest to this just when you got started with us. Do you mind if we start with you on this question?
Yeah, definitely. So, yeah, I mean, as a new graduate, you have no experience at all. It's most likely that you have theoretical knowledge than practical knowledge, I would say. So, as Devika and Daisy already mentioned, never feel ashamed to ask questions. When people question you, question them as well. Questions leads to answers, and that's when you learn. Always be open to learning, and that's make use of the experienced talents around you. That's what I do. I tend to ask them questions and I learn from them. And above all, I believe that actions speak better than words, because sometimes rather than explaining, oh, I know this, I know that, do your work in the most efficient way and show what you can bring to the table and how you can contribute to the company as an individual. And that's when it matters. And be open to learning. And in initial days, everyone will ask you questions because they know that you don't know anything. So I believe that's when you learn and develop as a person. That's when you grow. That's what I believe.
Yeah, Sarita, that's a great response. And do you feel like I'm really glad that you brought up question them back, because that is sometimes what leads to the answers faster than them just asking you to come up with the response, right? Do you feel, have you had any examples of situations where they've come to you with a question and you've gone back and you feel like you've been able to meet on something a little bit quicker in that regard?
Yes, definitely. So I have had issues because, like, you all know what softwares we use at ASM. So most people are still getting used to that, and some doesn't still know to navigate. So when I first came in, even I had it, hard, and then later, I became an expert in that softwares. So people come asking me questions to me. So I also feel like, every day when people ask me a question, it's a learning to me as well. Like, every day is a learning. You learn new things in your path and you help others learn as well. So, being open to everything is quite important when you start your career, and, never always break that shell and never sit in your comfort zone. Nothing like, comes without a price. You need to, be open and work hard.
Yep. That's a great point. Getting out there, being a sponge, meeting as many people as you can, absorbing as much information. That's fantastic. Okay. I don't want to open up another can of questions here that we might not be able to wrap up with. So let me pull up our QA piece here. So we've seen some questions come in as we've been having this discussion. Thank you all for entering those in. If you still have some questions, feel free to get those in, and we'll try to get to everything here. But our first question for the panel here, they want to start off by thanking you all for being on this panel. But the question is, what kind of soft skills should students be looking to develop to be successful within the semiconductor engineering career?
I can say one. So just the basic communication skill, having clarity of how you talk about your work, or even if you're sending an email about some technical details, or just be clear so that everybody who reads it can understand it. Also, when you're giving a presentation about the work, so we have to be very precise and clear about it. So these kind of, I think not only for the semiconductor industry, but any professional industry workplace. So these kind of soft skills are important. That's what I feel.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, going off that, even the semiconductor industry as a whole, you're probably not going to find too many companies within this industry that are not global to some regard, or have an employee workplace that isn't global in some aspect. So that clear, concise communication becomes even more critical when that component gets added in. So great point there, Devika. Let me see here. Next question for students that are in their last semester. Now, this could vary based on the program that they're in, but are any certifications that would be beneficial for them to look into as they prepare to start applying for positions? So software, mechanical, electrical, again, that could be dependent, but anything in particular come to mind for any of you? And I'll just add, as from my end, from working in talent acquisition, I wouldn't say that there's necessarily any certifications that we specifically are scanning for or are looking to see for preferential backgrounds or experience, but it doesn't sound like from our panelists that they've seen anything either.
I think that's very job dependent, like you said. There's specific ones for engineering, you know, the mechanical side, the electrical side, and quality. There's a lot of the black belt, Six Sigma, that type of thing. So I think it's very area dependent.
Yeah. Next question here. One of our audience members noticed that most of our panelists have either a master's and either a PhD in addition to that, or at least a master's. So as an undergraduate, they're wondering if they feel an advanced degree provides an advantage for working in this field, and how common this is among your colleagues. I'll let you all take this one.
I want to speak as a PhD that entered a semiconductor industry with no semiconductor background in my research. So I do feel yes, the PhD research did give me the benefit to actually moving into or transition into a semiconductor role in ASM. The reason being that the common logic between, or the common sense of engineers are the same to the ground, that either you are a process engineer or mechanical engineer, no matter which field you are working on, the logic flow on troubleshooting and design and making the practical the prototype working and testing in the lab, and then ultimately to the production is the same. You need to know how to design your experiment, how to put your design into a more feasible situation in the equipment. That's something that you already established your mindset during your PhD and master's. That's my experience as a PhD student who graduated and come into this industry. And for the second question, that I think for our department, I will say everyone here has a master degree at least, and most of them are PhDs.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and
can I just add something to this? So I work in process, and so as Daisy mentioned, that yes, the basic need is a logical reasoning. As long as you have a good logical reasoning and an idea of what is going on, of course, a master's degree and a PhD degree helps, because we just gain the experience of working in those kind of things, and a PhD research is quite like aggressive, and it develops your patience along with your logical reasonings. But at the same time, we do have new college graduates. Like in my team, I have a fresh undergrad working with me, and I mean, it's because of the brightness of the mind. It's always it's great to be working with even undergrads. So it doesn't mean that only a PhD and a master's degree will be needed. Like here at ASM, we welcome a lot of NCGs as well, and we would love to welcome them. So if somebody doesn't want to go for higher education, that's fine too. Will not stop them from working in this industry.
Response. And next question, it kind of bounces off something that Daisy, you had touched on this very briefly, but importance of that PhD research being this student, or excuse me, the audience member is asking about ALD. We didn't touch on our specific deposition technology. It sounds like they have some info on us, but how important is it for that research to be specifically focused on what we do here at ASM?
Devika, you want to take this one because it's more material and chemical.
Sure. So yeah, it doesn't have to be like in order to apply here and in order to work here, you don't have to have a background in ALD or EPI if you're interested in the process part. Any chemical engineering, probably you know chemistry more than I do at this point, so you will be a better fit. But yes, so any background of chemistry and material science, even if you have any vacuum technology experience, that kind of helps because you understand the tools better, the working of the tools better in terms of process, but it doesn't have to be ALD. And again, coming back, it's just your logical reasonings and how you look at a problem and how you kind of work towards troubleshooting that problem. That's what is essential. So a specific ALD background, it's not needed.
Good response there. Kimberly, we have a question for you. The question is what that transition was like from a physical chemistry degree to working in the semiconductor industry.
So it was inorganic chemistry. The transition, again, when I went to my master's degree, I actually ended up with a professor who did both a chemistry and material science. So I already in my master's did kind of this straddle into material science kind of unknowingly. A lot of it came from just, it was the chemistry side was what we were creating in a polymer chemistry we were using for the lithography technique. So it was kind of a marriage of the chemistry and materials. And so with that background, I was able to catch the attention of my first job in semiconductors. So it was kind of, you know, I was looking for a job and I was able to get a job. So luckily it was a good fit for me that I was able to do it for 25 years now.
Seems like it's worked out pretty well.
Yeah, I think so.
Let's see. Next question here. We had kind of touched on this already. Question is, what advice do you have when it comes to applying for positions? And they're asking specifically at ASM. So Sradha, if you don't mind me putting the spotlight on you here again, since you were the most recent one, anything that you'd like to add for how students might be able to prepare, stand out, and just put their best foot forward for their applications?
Yeah, sure. So again, it depends on majors. Like if for my major, like let's say mechanical engineering, you know, it's good to have your, you know, take some coursework that you're significant to your area of interest, because you know that will definitely help you during interviews too. And also like having some projects doesn't have to be your capstone project or something. You know, there will be some courseworks where you have like a side-by-side project, you know, in the specific, let's say if you are interested in thermal sciences, so you could apply for semiconductor industry, aerospace, automotive, and HVAC, and, you know, all sorts of industries. So, you know, it doesn't have to be that since you want to work for semiconductor, you have to specifically focus on ALD or EPI or something like that. Should be more like generic so that you have a broader scope for application. And I think, you know, when you choose internships, to choose wisely rather than, you know, just, okay, fine, I just go for an internship that I just got. Just rather than doing that, just make sure that you're doing what is right for you and what you're interested in. That's what matters the most.
Great advice. Great advice. Okay, this is kind of a fun question here. Upcoming innovations, developments in the semiconductor industry. Is there anything that personally excites any of you that you know is coming in the years to come, or things that we expect to come in the years ahead of us here?
Well, for me as a process engineer, we are always chasing the Moore's law. So yes, to defeat the Moore's law is always exciting. We don't know how far we'll go, but that kind of gives me the motivation to wake up each day and try to see how far we can go towards that. So that is the motivation I have.
Yeah, I mean, again, for as long as I've seen, I remember when it was predicted we should have been stopped a while ago. You know, we kept shrinking, and you can only shrink so much. And then somebody said, well, why don't we do it 3-dimensionally? Okay, you know, and now we've completely put all that on their end, and it's everything is moving to that 3D space. And now to look at heterogeneous integration and looking at, you know, cutting things and putting the dyes on another wafer, you know, so again, it's taking 3D to a whole nother level that it's amazing the ingenuity, and it just is a whole nother level of experience of challenges. And I love being with ASM because we excel in the chemistry and the precursors. And as we keep chasing that Moore's law, they keep going to more and more exotics. And so it's fun to be on that cutting edge. So there's so much ahead, like you said, Jordan. It's not slowing down. There's no, you know, dip here in the semiconductor.
Absolutely.
I would say it's frustratingly exciting. Because it's so frustrating at times, but then at the end of the day, it's so exciting as well.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's why we do it, right? That's why we're in this industry. But I see that we are hitting time. I want to thank our panelists for joining us here for the past hour, speaking of their experiences. I think the advice and just general comments that you provided are invaluable to those that are on the call here. And I was even able to learn a few things from you all. So thank you for your knowledge and insights on these topics.